Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Memo Creative Festival podcast, where we discuss big ideas around how creativity and culture shapes the way we work, live, and connect. I'm one of your hosts, Taylor Pfeifer, and I'm here with my co-host, Brooke Hoffos. And today we are interviewing Farzin Ghayour. Farzin is a Toronto-based senior creative manager at StackAdapt, where he leads global creative teams and oversees high-impact content creation. With a background in video game production, publishing, and branded content, and a Bachelor of Design in photography from the Alberta College of Art and Design, he brings a unique blend of storytelling, design sensibility, and operational expertise to every project. Farzin began his career at EA Games, then transitioned into editorial roles with leading Canadian publications, including Hello Canada, Canadian Business, and Fashion Magazine. He has since collaborated with major global brands such as Meta, Nespresso, L'Oreal, Porsche, and Unilever. Welcome, Farzin.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
We're super excited to have you here. And I was just taking note of all the companies that you've done work for, but you've actually started your career, like we said, at EA Games, and then have since moved through editorial, branded content, and now you lead creative globally at StackAdapt, which is pretty cool. I'm just curious, what moments or pivots stand out most to you in that evolution so far?
Well, let's start with EA Games. So fresh ingenue eyes right out of high school. I think every young boy's dream was to work at a video game company. So
Mhm.
I did a certificate in video game production and animation right out of the gate. Like I was working at A&W's flipping burgers, and then I went shifted gears to working at Canada's largest video game company,
Good for you.
EA Games. Yeah, it was. I will tell you, no one prepares you for such a shift like that. So yeah, so I got the role. I took the job on, and I think the biggest moment for me was it sucked my soul. It was just
Mm.
me and my computer for 8 hours a day. No one really talked to each other. It was very factory style working. And I think that was kind of the biggest shift for me, where it's just listen, what I thought was what I wanted isn't exactly what my soul and my personality and my heart desire needed. So that's why I decided to go back to school to be listen, I tried it, I lived that
Mm.
life. Even looking at different aspects of the video game world, could I work at maybe being an animator or a texturer or whatever it may be? It was it was still just me and a computer, and I just couldn't do it. So I went back to school, went back to ACAD, did my bachelor's in design, wanted to really work in photography, did all that, became a photographer, and same kind of idea was after a couple of years, I was I don't actually like taking the photos. I like organizing the photos
Yeah.
and being more of that photo editor. So that's when I shifted into publication. And publication was great, but Canadian publication just started to kind of crumble literally right underneath my feet. So a lot of my choices came as secondary thoughts, where it's EA Games was found out, didn't like it, didn't feed my soul. Publications was it was great, but there wasn't any room for it. So there wasn't any growth or movement. So I was kind of forced to kind of make that shift into more of that tech focused creative, which then led me into joining a startup, which got bought up by Shutterstock, which then took me into StackAdapt. So
Mm.
I would say some of these choices were mine. Some of these choices were brought upon me, but every step that I made literally has laddered me to where I wanted to be, and
Mhm.
kind of giving me some learnings across the way. So it was a really interesting journey from hopping from one industry to another and picking up some pieces, some information, and taking me to where I am right now.
Yeah, you have a really well-versed skill set in a lot of those different jobs that you've taken on, and one of them being that foundation in photography
Yeah.
and design. How has that shaped your approach to storytelling in more of a digital advertising and branded content space?
Yeah, I think design language translates through a lot of everything that we do. A lot of those
Hmm.
practices, a lot of those mediums, whether that is within photography, within page layout, where it is, if you're doing a display ad unit or a video ad unit, the essentials of visual hierarchy, balance, all of that stuff kind of lives through all of that. I think where the photography side has really benefited me is actually working with people more. If
Hmm.
you've ever met a photo editor, the majority of our job is just handling mess, planning for the worst, hoping for the best, and making
Mhm.
sure things go on track. I remember we were working at Fashion Magazine, and we were doing a video shoot with Carly Rae Jepsen in Vancouver. So we had all of this clothes get sent to our head offices in Toronto. We pack
Hmm.
it and we ship it. and we shipped it. And then the fashion designer there was like, nothing's at the studio yet. Like none of the clothing arrived. So I remember the fashion interns being like, oh, like where did it all go? Where has it landed? They talked to the courier and it was like
Oh no.
delivered to a Tim Hortons on
No.
Hastings Street.
Oh
So we're like, oh
no.
God, yeah.
You're like,
It was a
reboot.
panic, all panics, yeah. So we literally had to like call the Tim Hortons, like, yeah, there's all these boxes. I'm like, for the love of God, like, please do not open them. Like, someone will come pick them up. Like, do not spill like Tim Hortons donut dust. Some is like $30,000 Tom Ford dress. So like, if anything, photo editing and working publication has like taught me to like be able to talk to people, be able to manage all of this risk and see what might go wrong and how to plan best for it and kind of really navigate those solutions into a way that's like manageable without like having to pull your hair out entirely because you never know what's going to happen. Like especially on a live photo shoot, batteries can go out, permits might not come through, you might have to like shift gears, things might break that you might have to tape together. It's a wild west.
It is. And it's funny talking about photography because I actually lived in Vancouver for a bit and I worked with a photographer who shoots the Vancouver Canucks games.
Yeah.
So I helped with photo editing. So I understand the pressure, especially in those situations where it's like, holy crap, like anything can happen. So it's like learning how to pivot and adapt. Are there skills or mentalities like that that you've kind of carried through into StackAdapt now of how to pivot when things kind of get a little bit like, ugh?
Yeah, like it's interesting because I manage our global team. So we have
Mhm.
teams based out in EMEA and APAC, so Asia and all of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I think the biggest things that we have to pivot on, especially working with like programmatic, is a lot of like rules and regulations. Like I can show smoking ads in Indonesia, I can't do that in
Mm.
like Japan or elsewhere. So there's a lot of like rules and regulations that you have to be aware of on the back of the head, even though like you assume these clients have been working in these industries, these agencies that we work with, these are their bread and butter. Sometimes we have to say like, time out, you can't do that, or like we can't legally show this, or you need to make sure that these people are here without actually showcasing them. So another great example is when we are working with Nestle in the UK. So they have a hard guidelines of how many products you can show per hand. So for Skittles, it's like you can show 6 Skittles per one hand. If there's two hands, then you can show 12 Skittles, but you can't show one hand with like 8 Skittles because that's like overconsumption and that's against the UK bylaws. So there's a lot of like,
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of
That's
like
crazy.
jumping through hoops. And same with like alcohol brands. Like alcohol brands,
Mhm.
like you can show someone drinking, but you can't show someone drinking on a dock because that could be dangerous. They can fall in, they can thing. You can show one cup with two hands, but you can't show one cup with one or two cups with one hand because it's overconsumption. So there's a lot of like those navigating
Mhm.
through a lot of those legal things. And then when
What if
clients come with you with these like concepts, having to be able to pivot and say like, could we do this? Can we change that?
Mm.
Here's how we can attack this. Here's how we can showcase it and move forward. Because a lot of times they come in with things set in their head, and it's kind of like reworking that into what fit their budget strategies, what's fitting with their campaign launches to make sure that actually works for them within these regions.
Funny you just talk about like adding extra objects into photos. That made me think about the early AI days, and we're obviously still very much in the early AI days. Let's be honest. But do you remember like a year ago when like you would like prompt AI to like make a person for you or a scene, and everybody would have like 5 arms or like 16 fingers? Or I'm sure it's come a long way since then, and you've probably integrated AI a lot into your workflow and StackAdapt. I'm just wondering if you could maybe actually let's back up for a second. I just want to make sure that our audience knows first what programmatic advertising actually is. Could you just describe to us in a nutshell, real quick, like what is programmatic and why is it important to the advertising industry for those that don't know?
For sure. So programmatic advertising is pretty much the automated buying and selling of like digital ad space. So when you think about it, if you go to like Bon Appetit or Vogue.com, traditionally you'll see like those little banner ads that are placed on like the left and the right hand side. So advertisers are able to purchase that. And every time that page is refreshed, there's almost like an automatic bidding system. So like people will say like, I will pay, I don't know, like 2 cents to be on that website. Someone say, well, I'll pay 3 cents. And like, well, you're the winner, you take it. So StackAdapt allows our customers to go on StackAdapt, able to kind of put in all of their programmatic needs for that. What kind of customers they're trying to reach to, what kind of landing pages they want to be on, how much they want to pace, put all that bidding information, and it connects them to that demand supplies. This has shifted a lot, right? Because if you think about it, we're spending more time on our phones, right? We're all addicted to TikTok, I'm assuming. We're all spending too much time on that as it is. But a lot of this is moving into the digital space. And it started with like display and the native ads that kind of feed you like a little bit of a teaser of an article. You click on it, it takes you to a secondary location. But that's growing and expanding. We're seeing this now happen to like all of our traditional out-of-home advertisements, right? So all of those big billboards that people used to, print giant ads on, go up there, attach it with glue. All of that stuff is now shifting into digital, where you can change it in a heartbeat, switch it. And same with CTV and blended in-game and audio. So there's a lot more diversification when it comes to channels into programmatic than what we traditionally consider what we call like screen time, right? So like your laptop and your cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if who are you primarily working with? Like, is it agencies? Is it individuals? Is it brands directly? Are you working with in-house marketing companies or marketing teams within companies? Who is that primary sort of audience or collaborator that StackAdapt has?
Yeah, it's a wide mix. So we work with individual brand directs, or we work with big agencies. So we'll be working with the Dentsus of the world and whatnot. It all depends on what they need, right? We have like a self-serve platform side. So if clients want to go in there, if they're quite knowledgeable, they can manage that on themselves. Or we have a managed service. So if are of a bigger spend and you need a little bit more hand-holding and things like that, that's where we kind of hop in and help out.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you lead that creative team within StackAdapt, correct, right?
Yes. So yeah, we have
Okay.
a full team in here. Our creative studio is built out for our clients to utilize us to make sure that their campaigns are running as they should, as well as provide them some creative strategy reports. We'll have clients come to us that the last thing they've touched on advertisement was like newspaper ads. And they're trying to make that shift and that movement into the digital world. And they're like, listen, we have this budget. We know what we want to do, but like, what's the best way of tackling that? And that's when we get tapped in to not only help create it. So any channel that we have, we can build it from scratch. So we can work with voiceover actors. We have a full motion team in house to kind of build out any video assets, copywriters, all of that great stuff. Or we can sit down with them and say, listen, your goal is click-through rates. Here's what we suggest. Here's the channels to utilize. Here's the ad formats to use. And that's globally across all of our markets that we work in.
Sure. I just have a follow-up question on that because I think that's super interesting, especially as it pertains to this world of like data and information. And you're probably making a lot of decisions based off of like the analytics and what you're seeing behind the scenes as sort of this platform, this digital powerhouse. We just had a really interesting conversation with Leland Mashmeyer of Collins Agency, and they're famous for saying that design isn't what they make, it's what they make possible. And I think that's just such an interesting way to like articulate what design is and that sort of philosophy within their agency and how they sort of stand up brands and what's most important to companies as far as connecting with their audiences. So my question for you is like, when you work with your team and sort of challenge them to think beyond, what is that approach that you take in saying like, don't just make it look good, but make what works, what's going to work for the end user, or make something that's going to really perform at the end of the day for that company? Are those the types of conversations you're having with your team?
One thing about programmatic advertisement, it's led by like a goal or a KPI, right? Like this isn't like we're just putting an ad in a magazine and we're hoping X amount of people are going to see it. Like when we are working with programmatic, like we can track every single click, every return on ad spend. So there's always a lot of numbers attached to it. And that's like the first conversation we have with our clients. It's like, well, what's your goal here? What's your KPI? Are you trying to get click-through rates? Are you just trying to get brand awareness out? From there, we can kind of suggest multiple different channels. And all of those channels have their own like unique best practices, right? There's certain things that you would do with like a display unit that you wouldn't want to do with a native or a CTV or a digital at a home. So we use that end goal as our starting point to kind of work backwards to see what we need to build out for them to get through that. I think a lot of clients too also have like a very like tunneled vision of like what they need, and it's always a one-stop solution where really it might take 2 to 3 channels to get that viewer to that endpoint and that click through. So we rely on that to set us straight, and then from there we kind of talk to them, see what they need, what assets they have, and how we can build that out for them or bring that in-house to build it to them to make sure that they're hitting those goals.
On the contrary to that, though, how do you make room for storytelling and like expressiveness and creativity? Is there any of that as well with the client?
100%. Like, needless to say, like, we have all the tech behind it to make sure it lands in front of the right eyes. If it is an ugly ad, no one is still going to click on it, right? At the end of the day, we're all viewing the same things, and we all want to see something that is eye-catching, that connects to the viewer and really helps connect them to the brand or whatever it may be. So we want to make sure that the assets that we're creating are still visually representative. And I think also
Mm,
too, because we're exposed to so much of it. Like, if we just look kind of at more of our display native units, there's a statistic floating around that like we are exposed to about 4,000 pieces of advertising in a day,
Jeez.
right? It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's a crazy
Yeah.
yeah,
amount that we
it's a
see.
lot.
And we start to go eye blind to it, right? Eventually, you're just like, listen, all white noise, back of the mind. So we really want to make sure what we're making is kind of breaking through that sea of sameness and connecting to those viewers. And the way we like to tell our like storytelling and create more of a journey is utilizing more of those channels in the mix. Like, we're all unique human beings. We all travel in this world in different ways. Some of us wake up at 7 a.m. Some of us sleep till noon. Some of us are on our phone 24/7. Some of us
Mm,
like are out and about driving into work. So utilizing those channels at different times to help tell a broader story is really where that storytelling can connect. So we can use like digital out of home to like attack that viewer while they're driving so they can see our branding. We can then, follow it up with CTV at home where they're at home a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more open. We can, give them a full story of like who our brand is and that our, produce is organic and locally sourced within Canada. And then later
mm-hmm.
when they're on their phone shopping, we can reunite that brand again and showcase that we have a discount on our apples, so things like that. So our storytelling takes a longer journey than just here it is, let's try to cram everything in there. And then we also try to follow that user through their journey to make sure we're reaching them at those right times and giving them little breadcrumbs to the final results, which usually leads to more of a conversion base number metric with our display units.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Something that I've kind of grown up uh thinking when I'm kind of approaching creative work, and something that we do here is like keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
Is this something that you kind of lead with your team? Because that's something my mom has always told me, just kiss, Brooke, kiss. And it's
Yeah.
something that I think we know, but can sometimes be so hard to do. How do you like navigate clients down that path when sometimes they're like, no, we need everything. We need to say everything in one space. What's
Yeah.
the best way of guiding a client through that process?
I refer to it as like yelling at something from across the bar to someone, right? Like if you need to tell someone something
Mm,
important, you're not going to tell the full story and yell it across. You will yell to get their attention, and when they come
That's awesome.
close,
That's
then you'll
great.
have a deeper conversation. So
Yeah.
it's the same with programmatic, right? Like you shouldn't be putting all of this information in a display ad, right? We all live in a TikTok nation. Like our attention span is like less than like 6 seconds. And when you think about it, when you're like on a website trying to get somewhere, you're usually power scrolling. So you don't have a lot of time to capture that intention. So we always tell them, put the most important things in there. What is the sale? What's the offer? What's a deal? What makes you unique? And get that messaging through there to capture their attention and leave the rest of that like heavier text or more of that like bigger information once they've clicked through. Because if you're trying to do it all at once, people get turned off. Like it's nothing more jarring than having to see an ad that has like 6-point font because they're trying to tell you every single thing that their brand is all about all in
Yeah.
one go. I think also too with our teams, what we tell them too is like, you don't have that much time. You don't have that much time with that viewer. So things that we always address is like, make sure that logo's on there. So even if they're power scrolling, they can see that it is an A&W messaging.
mm,
Cool, great. Some clients always want to do like a really long animation or intro animation at the start. It's like, you don't have 15 seconds to showcase like this pretty dress walking into a field. Like, get that full body shot in there, get that pricing towards it in the best way possible that's within your brand to really land it. And similar with our digital out of home, people we usually want to do like some really beautiful animations, but like if you and me are walking to a subway train, we don't have time to stand around and watch this full video, 30-second video play out. Like try to keep it quick, try to keep it subtle movements and give all the information as you can up front because that's you might not have that much time with the viewer. So there's no point of wasting it on beautiful animation when you can really be wheeling and dealing and selling your needs.
100%. Is there any ads that you've seen recently that you're like, okay, they're doing it right? Besides maybe like the bigger brands like Nike, for example, is there any that you're like, huh, that's cool?
You know what I've been kind of like surprised at, and I'm actually quite liking? McDonald's did that recent launch with their global like the global
Yeah.
recipes that they were
International
like,
recipes. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they were like,
Yeah.
they're being stolen and things like that. Like it really hit a bit of nostalgia, I think, also with like the voice actor and like how they framed it. It was a really interesting play on like why these things are coming to us. And you know, we don't see a lot of McDonald's ads. I think they're one of those companies that's like it's tried, trusted, and true, really not launching anything crazy or new besides like maybe a Shrek McFlurry back in the day or things like that. They're not really
Yeah.
crazy innovative. So it was really interesting to see them take that kind of approach and also work with like a lot of actual like assets. Like I think those little car sets were all built out. There wasn't a lot of like AI builds, which we see a lot of things moving into. So it was a really interesting play for them. And I think a really great way of launching something new to the market, especially to the North American market that really like caught our eyes and made us all go down there and try to get that Biscoff McFlurry, which I still have
Yeah.
not been able to get my hands on.
I
Have you
need I
have
need
you
that.
tried any of the other products? Like I haven't had the Biscoff McFlurry, but somebody did at the office here, and she said it was phenomenal. But have you tried any of the other products?
I've tried the pizza bites, which are pretty much just like tiny Pop Tarts, or not Pop Tarts, Pizza Pops, which is like I'm not
Ooh.
mad at whatsoever. If you love Biscoff, Costco has a really good, I don't know if they still do, but they had a really good Biscoff cake and it was like earth shattering good. But yeah, that's the only one I've tried so far.
I tried the pizza bites too, and I was
Yeah.
really hoping that they would taste like the personal pan pizza from
Yeah, yeah.
back in the day, like
Oh,
original when I was growing up. That's what we got at McDonald's. Like mom
for
would order
sure.
the cheese personal pan pizza for us, and we would go nuts.
Right?
And it sort of tasted like that just a little bit. I
Yeah.
think I got a hint of that nostalgia, so I was super excited by that. But they were a little bit stale when I got mine, so but
I,
that's
I
okay.
think the interesting thing with McDonald's is they've been around. They have that
Yeah.
brand recognition and they can kind of do anything and you can recognize it, which is really cool. I know they've done some really cool wayfinding just with the M, kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
directing
yeah.
people when they're like driving, like, take your next right. And I'm like, that's pretty cool for your brand to be at that level, to be able to play in that space. Um, but as we're seeing a lot of generative AI kind of come into like the creative workflow, how do you see that reshaping creative teams? Like, is that a threat? Do you see that maybe being more of like a positive tool or something else completely?
Yeah, I think for us, especially at StackAdapt, we're really leaning into it. I had a really good photo teacher, and we were talking about like as photographer students, we're like, well, which camera should we buy? Like, how many
Mm,
pixels do we need? And he said something that like stuck in my head for the longest time. He said, it's not the 5 inches in front of your eyes that matter; it's the 5 inches behind your eyes that makes a good creative. So it's like I view it as a tool, right? As a lot of things have shifted within our time, we used to all be, in dark rooms developing films, and now
yes.
everything's all digital, and now cameras have now become our phones and our phones have evolved to have like so many pixels that like I don't even know a lot of people like when they go on vacation they just take their smartphones with them. So I see it as that kind of movement where we are evaluating and creating a new tool for us to launch faster, to create better ideas, to utilize in a ways to help us elevate what we're already building on. And we're utilizing it in ways to help us launch faster. So because we're
Mm,
working with HTML5 formats, we're using AI and those tools to kind of help us create some codes to really create some really beautiful eye-catching animations or tools that we can ladder up into those things. I think also it's also going to shift our landscape, especially in programmatic, because people aren't Google searching as much, right? We're all going into ChatGPT and be like, find us the best recipe for chicken Alfredo. And like, there it is, right? We're not being led to the Bon Appetits of the world and reading through those magazine or through those articles and seeing
mm,
those display ads. So even for us at programmatic, we might see a bigger shift to more of these more like traditional programmatic spaces that have been converted. So like CTV and digital out of home might take a bigger step because you can't really chat GPT your way through traffic. You still have to drive there.
Yeah.
You will still
yeah,
see
not yet.
yeah, so like for us, for right now, I see it as a great tool. I can understand why some creatives are a little bit nervous on it, but I think it's one of those things like I don't really see it going away. I don't think it's like a fad where it's like, oh, it's fun and like it stopped. This isn't like a Snapchat filter situation. I think it's something that's just progressively going to get bigger and better. And I think it's smarter for us to adopt it and figure out how we can use it on our journeys than kind of like stay clear of it and like really feel like we're being left behind. Like I used to work at Blockbuster, another fun side gig, and it's the same story, right? Like they had the opportunity to become like a streamer and like no thank you, like we don't want to do that, and see where they got left behind in the dust with the changing times.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we've talked to a few people now who have different opinions on AI, but I think we're all sort of going to the same place that it's here to stay. This isn't just a fad. And in fact, I was just talking to my dad the other day about it, and he's like, I don't know if I'm ready to like use AI. I'm like, have you ever used Google?
Yeah. Or
You've
Siri.
used AI,
Yeah.
and especially lately with the, answers that AI is generating for Google. When you search something now, it's the first thing you see. It's generative AI, and it's searching the web, and it's delivering a pretty good message for you, the answer that you're looking for within a matter of seconds. And my dad's like, "Oh, that's AI." I'm like, yeah, that's
Mm.
AI. It's kind of a horse and buggy scenario. Like farmers used to plow their land with a horse and a plow, like manual work. And I'm sure the farmer across the way, when he got his tractor for the very first time, everybody's like, what the heck is that thing? That's cheating. You can plow the land more quickly and be more efficient. It's the same thing. And so you just kind of have to adopt the technology instead of being scared of it. And I think it's going to make us all sort of better for it. However, I think the thing that we just need to sort of keep looking out for is this idea of connecting to each other on a human
Yeah.
level. And I don't want that to get missed ever. And I think that what you do with programmatic and the advertising and delivering those messages to people in the ways that they need them, that's probably still the key ingredient there, is still
Mm.
connecting authentically to the audience. That seems to be the best way to build brands still. Do you agree? Do you agree with that? Or do you think it's sort of like mass sort of blasting, and there are brands that take that approach too?
No, 110%. I think with, as I said before, because we're seeing so much programmatic in that space, I think kind of like these not cookie cutter, but like these simplified versions of ads that go out there, that's the stuff that gets lost, right? People
Mm.
still wanna feel like, even though we all know we're an algorithm, right? Like at the end of the day, we're all numbers and preferences and likes and dislikes and all of that stuff. Like that is a hard fact. We still want to feel like this ad was built for us. Like it was made for us as a viewer, as a consumer. And I think with technology, because we can get so granular to who that is, we should be putting more effort into that. We should really be seeing who these people are and talking them to directly. So, like, if we are fans of, I don't know, swimming, let's just showcase them like swimming gear. So there's no need to like highlight stuff for running and things like that. I think the more fine tuned we can get with it, the more personalized we can get. And the tech is actually helping us. Like, there's certain tools that that we can do that can pull in like where you are. So we can mimic that back to you. We can say, hey, Brooke in Vancouver, FYI, the McRib is back. I don't know why we're stuck on McDonald's, but McRib is
Okay,
back.
I like A&W, so we can
Perfect.
use
So
A&W.
two teams for $6. That's how much it was when I was working there.
Okay, cool.
Two teams for $6 is back. So it talks you directly to where you are and speaks
Nice.
to you as a human being instead of like number and an algorithm. So I think the
Mm.
tech does that. The tech can find us easily, but I think the design, the layout, the concepts, all of that stuff still needs to have that heart. And I think that's what we connect to versus just another ad, another discount code, another like product on a page. And I think also too, like pulling in the fact that Brooke is in Vancouver adds a bit of like, I want to say like creep factor, but like creep factor is
Mm-hmm.
a bit good. Like whatever time we can buy with people, especially in the programmatic world where people are power scrolling, like makes you stop and makes you think, right? This is the same logic with magic. Like no one likes magic for liking magic. We all like magic because
Mm.
it creeps us out in a bit, right? Like
Yep.
where did
Hmm.
that woman
Yeah.
go? How do you know that's
Yeah.
my card? Do it again. I want to see it, right? It makes us stop, it makes us think, and it makes us connect with it. And I think pulling in some of those aspects will help programmatic succeed, but also talk to your viewer on more of a one-on-one situation instead of making them feel like just a mass blast email situation.
Mm. I completely agree. How are you able to maintain the soul of a story while you're meeting those demands and ROIs? Like, what is something that you kind of pinpoint to keep that soul alive in this creepy digital space sometimes?
I
That
think
might be a weird way of saying
No,
it,
no,
but
no. It totally makes sense. I think the soul lives with the brand. So my biggest
mm,
thing, especially when talking to clients or reviewing assets, it's like, is this true to who you are? Because at the end of the day, it still should represent you and who your brand is and true to your voice and true to your messaging. A lot of clients are like, A&W is doing this. We should get them to sponsor this.
Mm.
A&W is
Yeah,
doing this. We want to do that. It's like, but that's not who you are, right? Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, once people click or go to your website, no one wants to feel like there's a bait and switch situation where you just use some like jazzy tactic to get me through the door. And now,
Yeah.
I'm giving somewhere else. So I always say the soul of that messaging lies within your brand, because if you're true to your brand, we can make magic work. And we want to make sure that the customer has that unique journey through all of those steps, because getting them through the door is half the equation, right? Once they're on your landing page, that's back to you to manage. And we don't want to make sure we're hawking something that you can't promise on the back end. So that's where I find the true soul lives, is a brand that's staying authentic to them and isn't afraid of maybe doing something that might seem out of step or out of line, or maybe, not what we would consider traditional, programmatic best practices, but it's true to them as a brand.
Are you guys the ones listening to our phones?
Yeah.
So you could blink twice if it's.
He takes a sip of his
Imagine.
coffee.
I saw him blink.
No, this not that I'm aware of that we are. No, we're not doing that. But I think also too, like a lot of people have those fears. But it's like, who's reading these like app downloads, right? Like it's majority of this is your phone and all of those like fun, weird, wacky games that you play that no one reads like the rules and regulations to and just hits down upload. Like there's a lot of information, and as I said, we're all just data points at this point being shared, sold, and reshared, and things like that. So it's a hard way to escape it, but can do better to utilize that information to actually create ads that speak to them directly.
Where do you sort of see the future of all this going? Like we're in the now and it's sort of hard to comprehend it because it's moving so quickly. But have you like paused for a second and thought, where is this going to go in like 5, 10, 15, 50 years from now? Like how much more hyper targeted could this possibly get? What does that look like to you?
It's hard to say. I would say that. The one thing I will say is like it's always evolving and it's always growing, especially when we talk more about that digital sphere, right? But as I said before, like traditional out of home. And when we look at traditional at home, like remember, like people used to be like painting like farm and field equipment on the side of like barns back in the day, right? Now everything's transitioning into more of a digital space where you could literally buy that inventory for 3 hours every 2 days, and that's what you need. And we are seeing more of that move over, right? CTV, digital at home, or audio. There was talks. I remember someone was talking to us about like the possibility of having like streaming video services and TV shows having programmatic advertising inside of them. So let's say you're watching and just like that on HBO Crave, and you see lovely Sarah Jessica Parker prancing across a New York street as she always done. If there was a billboard in the background, there could possibly be a way where we could rent that space out to whoever the highest bidder is. So every time
Interesting.
someone's watching that episode, depending on where you're located or what you add, it could be an A&W advertisement for Vancouver or A&W restaurant or wherever it may be. So like the way that's transferring and the way more and more of our stuff is becoming more into that digital space and that digital realm, I'm assuming that programmatic is going to catch up with that, and we're going to find different areas where we can kind of work our ways in. Like, and you think about like all of those like, meta lenses and all of that kind of stuff. Like, who knows what's going to happen when you're walking around? Maybe ads will start popping up and playing, and animations will happen. It's interesting to see because it's always shifting and changing. And I would also say the big players are also always shifting and changing the landscape. So like Google and Apple, right? Like all of this stuff lives on the open internet. So if they start shifting their rules and regulations of what we can and can't do, then we also have to start shifting how we build it, and seeing things with like city guidances and country guidances. There's certain things we can't do in the UK that I can do free and wild in North America like crazy. So it's all gonna ladder up, and I think it's up to us to kind of keep up with it, and also make sure like the governments are regulating it to a certain degree to protect the viewers as much as they can, in a sense.
Yeah, the regulations is very interesting to me, and I think something that a lot of people aren't really familiar with. And I know we touched on a little bit earlier. What is one of the strangest regulations there is, or something that you've come across so far in your career?
Well, I would say this. So, like right now in North America, we can actually locate your lat long. So we can actually pinpoint where you are, like on a map, and we can build units for you to drive like what we call footfall traffic. So if I was A&W, once again, if I was A&W and wanted to showcase the closest stores to you, I could create a feed unit we call the store locator, and it pinpoints where you are, And then on the back end, the tech will pinpoint the 3 closest locations to you. And then we'll give you a navigation. So if you click like, oh yeah, that's a restaurant I want to go to, you click on it, it will take you to Google Maps and say, hey, listen, you're like a 3-minute walk. Here's the directions you can take, go to town. In the UK, they won't allow us that access. Like, I think the closest we can get is like a postal code, but we're not allowed like the lat and long of it all. So we have to then create secondary ad units that actually allow us to kind of um, target you in more of a broader sense instead of like literally pinpointing it to you. So like that's one of the biggest differences that we're seeing right now when it comes to kind of those regulations. It's like region by region, specific by specific. It all depends on like what the government and what the people feel comfortable sharing that sense. And that's where the UK is like, you can't get this granular of information from someone, but in North America, she's the wild, wild west. Like they, I can find
You
you
can
on
do
your
anything.
Me too, yeah.
That is so interesting and kind of creepy, but like I find it very interesting how it can just differ between different countries. Um, a, Something that I was curious about is high impact content. How would you define that today? And perhaps how has that definition changed in the last 5 years, or how have we seen that changed?
I think if you talk to different people, impact has different meanings, right? So I think previously impact was like, what was people talking about around the like the water cooler, right? Like when you think about Super Bowl ads or like scandalous like billboards, people are like, oh, did you remember that like Calvin Klein ad with like Mark Wahlberg? And like people were talking about it on that side. When we are now, especially with programmatic, where we've kind of seen that shift, high impact means like what had the best clicks, what got you those numbers and those KPIs. So like people don't have to remember it as much. It doesn't have to be like a big memorable moment, a big splash, and that still lives, right? Like there's still tons of that still floats around out there. That's more on the traditional like print broadcasting side that we see more of those like engagements. But for us, high impact means what is getting us those clicks, what is getting us those video completion rates, what is getting us those conversions, and from that we're utilizing more of the tech to kind of get us there. So as we talked before, like maybe targeting where you're located to help drive those clicks, maybe creating what we call dynamic retargeting, where it's like we can see what you added into your cart last, and we can say, hey, Brooke, remember this lovely blue top that you're wearing that you added into your cart and you forgot to check out because you're ordering A&W on Uber Eats? Like don't forget to purchase it and check out. And that's something else that we're targeting. So I think that kind of impact idea has shifted a bit, especially as everything has kind of moved to more of a digital landscape and more of a measurable landscape instead of just like you couldn't really measure how many people were like chit-chatting about it over a water cooler, but now I can literally track how many people are clicking on it and purchasing that product.
That's really interesting, Farzin. I have a question for you that sort of plugs into this. I'm not sure if you're going to have the answer or not, but we have hyper targeting on one side, and that's the world that you live in, and it's
Yeah.
like getting people relevant ads to be able to click on those things, and it's specific to them. We also have organic social media, and that
Yeah.
seems to be a world in which a creator can spin up a TikTok account and make a few videos and go viral overnight,
Yeah.
and get attention in an entirely different way. I'm just wondering if like StackAdapt or you integrate this idea of organic and paid together, or if you just focus on that paid media side at StackAdapt only, and then just sort of leave it up to the client to pair that into or feed that into their organic strategy.
Yeah, so we always work on what we call the open internet, right? So when we're thinking about socials, the TikToks, the Instagrams, the Facebooks of the world, we call those the walled garden. So you deal with Facebook advertising, you deal with Instagram advertising. They have all of that built out. They can, put all those numbers and algorithms together. We don't have access to it because it's walled off to us. So when we talk about programmatic, we're seeing things that are like in the wild, out in the open internet, all of that great stuff. And I think sometimes we do have integrations and new tech builds that allows clients to take their like Instagram the stories or even their Facebook stories and kind of morph them into ad units in the open internet, but still kind of mimic that. I think there's a bit of like comfort and like recognition that people enjoy seeing it outside in the wild because they know what an Instagram feed looks like and a Facebook feed. But we don't ever, those two worlds on our side never touch. If an agency is doing both, they can kind of have it A and B live in their both spheres and they can kind of program it around each other. But we as StackAdapt only deal with the open internet. And sometimes it doesn't really make sense, right? Like when you think about when you're doing something on social or on these social websites, you're really wanting that person's followers to follow through, right? Like there's a reason why you hire the Kim Kardashians of the world, because they have like 6.28 billion followers. You know that they're going to see it, you know that they're in line with their interests. But once you take the Kim Kardashian out of it and put her into the open internet, like your great Aunt Sue's not going to know who she is. She could be one. That's not really helping that case study or utilizing their power in that sense to kind of target it back to them.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because I think both matter, especially if you're a brand and you're trying to build something, you're trying to tell that story. There's this book that Gary Vaynerchuk just wrote called Day Trading Attention. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look through it or flip through it, but Gary talks about this idea, and I think this is really smart. Building a social strategy on the organic side to just like test, see what resonates with your audience by just putting out sort of the free content and seeing what's getting the most clicks and views that way. And that might tell you that people are actually interested in that thing in that way. And then what you could do is you could take that content and then maybe refactor it or design that content in a way that can be served as an advertisement. And then you sort of know that it's going to connect with the intended audience because it's already connected well organically. So I like that sort of bridge between social and paid. And I think it's just a really smart way to maybe test the ad before you put some serious dollars behind it. But I'm sure that StackAdapt has its own sort of testing, A/B testing systems, and probably with AI now too, you can probably put it into your system and it'll help, analyze and kind of optimize everything for you. But just wondering if you could talk a little bit more kind of about that process and how you kind of like test before you commit. How do you reduce the risk, I guess, before somebody's like jumping in 2 feet first into that advertising campaign?
For sure. So I would say here at the Creative Studio team, we actually really encourage clients to A/B test, right? Because like that's the thing. Like if you take something out of social and put it in the paid, will it work, right? Like is it the same audience trends? Is it the same kind of movement? How people are actively scrolling and maybe have more of like a relaxed brain versus someone who's like trying to power shop and maybe not resonate to the same messaging. So we always recommend clients A/B test, especially if they're trying something new or maybe launching a new product. We had a client that came in that was selling CBD oils and like creams for like joints. And then they're like, we know our customer, hands down. We've been in this industry for 4 years. We're good to go. We know that the majority of our clients buy it for pain relief. We're like, okay, like it would not harm you or hurt you to just do, and what we call it is kind of like a questionnaire. So we actually pose a question to clients like, what would you use this product for? Like, what are you looking for in like a CBD oil? And it was like pain relief, relaxation, sleep. And I don't remember the last one. But once we send down the world, because it has multiple options, multiple click-throughs, we can track that. We can track who's clicking on what and get those active numbers back to them. So once we did that, we actually went back to them like, listen, like 89% of your population or your demographics or the people who are seeing this ad that you're targeting that are interested in CBD oil actually want this for sleep instead of pain medicine. And they're like, oh,
There you
and
go.
it's like,
Yeah.
there's no better place than the open web to do these tests, right? Whether it be trying out new products to see what people are interested in, or even just simple A/B testing. So everything we build is tracked. So we have codes on the back end in our ad tags that kind of highlight what we're using. Is it a blue button? Is it a red button? Is it one person in this image? Is it a product image? Are we seeing like a benefit? Like, are we seeing like buy one, get one free versus like 50% off? We track it. So that way we can elevate and move forward with our clients and say, listen, hey, here's what we're seeing. Let's scrap this one because it's not as performing as higher. Reinvest in this, and then also maybe do some other A/B testing along the way. We've also released dynamic creative optimization, which allows our clients to plug in their feeds. And what it does, it tracks what the viewers are engaging with online. So if there's a trending product, let's say, I think I'm done with A&W. Let's say we're Zara. Let's say with Zara, and we're like, listen, we've just launched like 16 new tank tops. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, Beyonce is wearing a yellow tank top and yellow tank tops are selling. Great. Well, we'll start featuring that more. So we're not spending, budget across 10 different tank top colors. We're seeing what people are buying, what the trend is, and then advertising dollars are out there pushing that forward to then make sure that we are like highlighting the products that are working that way. And it could be new things. We can list new products. We can list in products that are last added to cart. There's lots of new tech ways to kind of make sure that the messaging and the right messaging is being tested, refined, and kept moving forward as we kind of collect the datas and the click-throughs and all of that great stuff that comes through.
I think we have a couple more minutes here, and as we sort of wind down, I just want to flip gears slightly, and it's more about maybe Farzin and about sort of what you need to be the best version of yourself. And I'm just curious about this. What are your sort of like non-negotiables in your life that you have to, sort of get Farzin what he needs to be the best version of himself, to be at his A game, to remain high energy like you are, to come to work every day, wake up out of bed being like, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to, show up not just for myself, but for my team, be a great leader. I'm going to get what my team needs to be the best versions of themselves. I'm going to be that platform. But I think that all sort of starts from within.
Yeah.
And is it, working out? Is it food? Is it like, something else, some sort of secret that you could share with us that that you have, that you use for yourself, that allows you to be you?
100%. I think because I work in programmatic advertising and all I do is like online, I need a clear like churn state divide of like putting tech away and doing things with my hands. So I used to do a lot of ceramics, like working with clay, like nothing more therapeutic than like playing with like the most like simplistic form of like creation that there was. And then we recently bought a house. So I've been doing a lot of gardening. So I find like for me, like having that mental switch off, where I'm not looking at a screen or interacting with technology day in and day out, gives me that ability to kind of take a mental break from it all, because it can get a bit exhausting, like, and on your eyes and
Totally.
everything's just staring at a screen, but also doing something that's like still with my hands. Because at heart, I'm still a creative. Like, I still love the creative aspect. I still love everything around creative, the arts, all of that stuff. And I want to feel like I'm building something or doing something and seeing end results. So I always make sure that I have that good balance of, it's not always just going from my phone to my laptop, to my laptop to my TV, from my TV back to my phone to TikTok and going to bed. Like, there's a clear break for me to kind of have that mental shut off and also still be proactive with my hands and feel like I'm building something to feed my soul. And let's be honest, not all of those ceramic projects turned out to be gold star winners, but at least it gives me that outlet, right? And I think
Totally.
one thing I find as well, especially managing teams, is like people come into a job expecting it to like fill their cup 110%, right? And like, work is work, right? Yes, you should be happy at work. It should do something that makes you feel like you're growing and you're learning and moving like that. But like, work will not always feed your soul. Like, at a certain point, you have to get that creative outlet somewhere else, right? Like, no one takes a vacation from work to do more work. Right? There's a reason why there's that break. So I think people also need to be realistic of like what they're expecting to get out of that work and get what they can out of it, but also have their souls fed elsewhere, because it can't be a one-stop shop for everything. There is no dream job that's going to fill every single portion of your life, and you need to make sure you understand what's important within that role and what you're going to actively search for outside of that role to have your cup filleth over.
Yeah, I think you said it. It's so important to go back to the human side of things and play, like physically play with your hands. I think that's super important, because I feel like probably at StackAdapt, it could probably get exhausting a bit, and being in such a digital high traffic, pace, can be a lot. So that's great to hear that you find that inspiration in gardening or wherever else. How do you kind of fuel that those ideas, or take away and bring it into your work at StackAdapt? Like, maybe your gardening, is there something that you've learned in that process that you're like, this can relate to my job at StackAdapt in this way?
Would say so. Two things for us, because we work with our sales teams quite heavily on like helping them create strategies. So I always tell my team, it's like, this is a long burn situation. Like, you can't plant the seed and expect that food's gonna bear overnight. So like, it's a lot of like checking in, double checking with those clients, see how things are progressing, see how things are moving, make sure we're nourishing them at the right time. And like, something that you might have had a conversation on like 4.5 months ago, now the client is ready to like launch, and here we go. Here's our kickoff point. So kind of that patience of like instant action doesn't always mean instant result. Sometimes you
Yeah.
do have to like plant that seed, let it grow its roots. You've done everything you could at the start, provided the right information, create the right creative strategies, had the right conversations with them, and then they will in due time come back to bear you that fruit and launch those amazing campaigns where you get to work with like those clients. So it's a lot of like patience, especially with ceramics, because it's not a one-stop shop, right?
Yeah.
You have to build it, you have to let it dry, you have to build some more of it. You can't build too fast or the weight will crush itself. Then you have to trim it and then fire it, and you have to come back and paint it and then refire it and reglaze it. So like, it's not just like a one and done. It's
Mm.
it's understanding what the end goal is and just making sure that you are kind of like doing the right steps along the way, and then the end results will come through if you've done everything properly on those steps.
That's a great tip, because I think that's something we can sort of lose, is patience in such a digital space
100%.
nowadays. So I love that.
Yeah. And same thing with like instant results, right? Everyone's
Yeah.
like, so like, oh, like. It's like, no, like it takes some time to A/B test it. Like give it 3 weeks, let it hit those
Yes.
numbers to get those results to come back to you.
That's awesome. Something that we are asking every guest that comes on the Memo podcast is, if you could write a memo to a younger version of yourself, Farzin, what would you say?
What would I say? That's a good question. I would say this. So first year painting at university at ACAD, I had a teacher, very lovely gentleman, nice guy, a little bit more like soft spoken. Couldn't remember anyone's name. So I always, in the back of his ear, I'm like, that's Sarah, that's Timothy, that's X, Y, and Z. And I remember at our year end critique. So we brought like all of our 3 to 4 paintings. He would have us a critique, one-on-one, of course. And he would just like, your color selection's great, your brush strokes are yada, yada, yada. And I remember at the very end, he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. And he's like, you're not going to make it in this industry. And I was like, oh, I was like, first of all, I didn't want to be a painter. So I was like, well, no harm, no foul. But like, where is he going at? And I remember him saying, he's like, you're just too loud. He's like, people that make it as artists are more quiet and more reserved, and your loudness. And like, I can chat, as you can tell, but like I'm not like, vocally like demanding every conversation. And I just remember like it stuck with me. And I think it like a little piece of that carried through my work ethic, where I'm like, should I say that, or is that me being loud? Or should I do this, or is this like me stepping on a toe, or X, Y, and Z? So I felt like I had to hide a little bit of myself at certain cases, especially like who is in a room, like it's a CEO, like do you say that? And like, yes, reading a room is important, but I found my greatest strength is when I'm able to be my authentic self. And I will say StackAdapt has embraced all that. It's one of their main philosophies. Like they want your authentic self to be there, because if you feel comfortable, you do your best work. And like not all companies allow that, which is a shame. But I found that like if I go back to myself, that's one thing I would tell myself. It's like it's not a you problem, it's a them problem, right? Like you need to feel comfortable. Your voice matters, your opinions matter, and like say it. If worst comes to worst, you say it and someone disagrees, that's totally fine, right? Like, but I can feel like at night I can go to bed being like, I voiced that opinion. I made sure that was heard. And if something goes sideways, at least I can go back and say, hey, remember when I told you X, Y, and Z? Here we are. So I would say like, just make sure you're not hiding your true self, because I think that's what people hire for. That's what people want to see. And that was one thing I mean, it still sits in the back of my brain. I've learned to ignore it at this point, but yeah, I would just go back to him and say, that's bullshit and don't listen to it.
Yeah,
love that.
that's great advice. Do you think he was like maybe just saying that so you could like challenge it and then just like rise up, just like getting under your skin, or do you
You're
think
like, look
he
at
was
me
like,
now?
Yeah,
Look where I am. I should
Exactly, yeah.
It was
rose
just
from
like,
the ashes?
yeah, like it was just a really shocking thing to say, like especially
Yeah.
in arts
When you're just starting
university.
out, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Like also too, it's like
Totally.
we're artists. Like, aren't we supposed to be bold and brash and like you know what I mean? Like everyone had their big movements and like thought outside of the box. So it, like caught me off guard. And I think also
Kidding.
I was born in Iran and we moved here as immigrants, right? Like we came here as refugees. So like my mother's always told us to be like, don't bring attention to yourselves, like try to simulate, like don't, we always had the fear of like the Western culture and what's going to happen. So I think there's like a little part of that, like that brought back up into me too, where it's like, oh, am I like stepping out of line? Like, am I doing something that's like not status quo? And yeah, so I learned to work over that. So
Awesome.
suck
That's
on
good.
it, suck on that, whoever you
Exactly.
are.
Yeah. No, it's important. It's important to take up the space and not feel like you can't. So that's great. That's a great memo.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Farzin. Thank you so much for joining us on the Memo podcast. And on behalf of Memo, I also just want to say thank you to StackAdapt. StackAdapt is a sponsor of Memo Creative Festival happening October 2nd and 3rd of this year. And we are just so thankful for that partnership and that sponsorship. It's going to help us bring the event to life. And it's an honor for us to host StackAdapt and yourself and just share a mutual space and celebrate creativity and build some culture together. So once again, thank you, Farzin. This was a great conversation, and we will absolutely have another conversation in the future just like this.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you.